analogy is cooking. So I mentioned it in the first class. I think I noticed that somebody of you were laughing, but there are a lot of similarities between cooking and programming. Maybe not the cooking itself, but the culinary recipes. And at the beginning, it was even said that if you can cook well, if you can follow the instructions in a cookbook, then you should be also a good programmer. So if we look at a recipe, we can find parts that are similar in recipes and in programs. Obviously, we have a name of a recipe, and the same we have for a program. And in both, it is crucial that we have a name that convey what is inside. So if we want to prepare a burger, let's say, then we will look for a recipe where in the name we have burger. And if we will be surprised if we find a recipe where we have burger in the title, but it describes how to prepare, let's say, a coffee. And the same for programming. So the name should convey what is the purpose, what is the behavior of the program. And then we have result. So in case of a culinary recipe, if we execute it, if we follow it, then we will obtain as a result a meal, hopefully a tasty one. And then in a program, we also have some result. It can be either some number after a computation, or more numbers, or strings, or some other format of output. And the crucial part of recipe are ingredients. And for a program, it is an input data. So usually we need some data to make something out of this data according to the instructions. And in recipe we have directions, the steps that are describing what we are supposed to do. So this is like a programming code, so the statements from the program. To the recipe we can add our personal notes. For example, if we have a very old oven, then we can write a note that we should put something and keep something there inside for a longer time that it is in the recipe. And the same in a program, we can add comments. So we can add information that is for other programmers, or it can be also for us later in the future. And it will be not interpreted by a program, by a Python interpreter or other program interpreter, but it is for human. And additionally, what we may have for a recipe, we can have some meta facts, like nutrition facts. So how many calories, what is the percent of fat, and what is the percent of other macro elements. And for a programming, in a programming, we can have also meta facts about the program. We can have, for example, a number of lines in a program. So how big is the program? Or we can have, for example, test coverage or other properties that are kind of meta properties of a program. We can write a recipe as a pseudocode. So here you have an example of a dinner for beginner. You can just read this pseudocode, and then hopefully you should understand what is the meaning behind that. And it should be the same for a program. The program should be readable to this extent that if you read the program, only the lines of code, you should understand what is the purpose of the program. So here you can pause for a while and then read the recipe. And this analogy is very old, as I mentioned. It comes from the very beginning of computer science, of programming, but it is still popular. So some time ago I found a course which was only about this analogy, and it was like 14 hours. The guy is only talking about comparison of cooking and computer science in general, big data, artificial intelligence, and all possible stuff. I was only looking it for the first unit of it for a few minutes, and if you have 14 hours spare, it is better to spend it on programming, of course. But this is only what I wanted to show you as something interesting, that this analogy is still interesting for people, and people are trying to do something out of that.